HTMX sucks. You probably wouldn't believe it if I was just the one saying it, but this isn't me. This is on the HTMX website. So let's see what they have to say, because obviously there's good things about HTMX, there's bad things about HTMX. But we should try and understand them, and why, at the very least, to our good friend Carson, why HTMX sucks. HTMX sucks. I've been following HTMX for a while now. I thought it was a somewhat funny / cringy meme, and that it served as some light comic relief from the real work being done in web development. Things like server components in React, Svelte runes, as well as signals, all of which are actually pushing the state of the art forward. Unfortunately, at some point in the middle of 2023, people began to actually take HTMX seriously for some reason. I am so curious what the reason is. HTMX in 100 seconds. That makes sense. 1.1 million views. That's crazy. That's like 2 times more views than my most popular video. And I'm really popular. So yeah, that's a really serious thing. I see why people are getting concerned this might be a serious thing now, though. Yeah, this is an extremely alarming turn of events that has me deeply concerned for the future of web development. And I'm not alone in my alarm. You can read an excellent dressing down of HTMX here. Where is this one coming from? Gotta love those archive because it's Medium, so it's also paid. HTMX, the framework stupid gets dialed up to 11. I've said for ages that people who create frameworks are generally ignorant. This is a great start. I'm sure this is going to be full of really insightful things if your first sentence isn't formatted correctly. I know I'm picky about grammar shit, but if you're trying to put your opinion out there, make sure the first fucking paragraph is coherent at the very least. Anyways, we have a more cohesive, coherent HTMX hater here, so we're going to focus on this one. Basically, they've put their ignorance on full display, then attribute all sorts of unfounded merits to whatever they've done, hoping that everyone else pats them on the back for it. Anyways, so true. So true. Unfortunately, the language in that excellent Medium post is academic, and without a solid grasp of theoretical HTML, many of the more important points in it will go over a typical web developer's head. Thankfully, I'm a backend dev, so I write Next.js, so we should be good. And if you don't get it, that's fine. I know a lot of you guys write React. I'll translate from React to reality. I do that a lot. So in this article, I will attempt to present in plain language for the layman web dev why HTMX sucks. The code is crap. First of all, consider the code for HTMX. Look at this garbage. And yeah, it is garbage. How many instances of var? There's 463 vars on this page. 2 lets, and one of them's in a comment, and 3 consts. Nobody wins here, except for var absolutists, because you've gotten 436 vars. That's more than I have in my node modules, and I have a lot of node modules. Thankfully, you don't have to deal with node modules here because all of HTMX.js is a single JS file. They happen to have types because people will complain otherwise, but the entirety of HTMX is one single 4,000 line JS file. Yeah, that sucks. Why would anyone want this? It's garbage code, as they were saying. They use var all over the place, almost no modern JavaScript features. Hello, HTMX people. Have you heard of modules? They pollute the window namespace, on and on and on. How many places do they call window in here? I should check too. They have more instances of window dot than they have of let and const combined. I mean, why do you need const or var or let when you have window? I need to do the Galaxy Brain meme. I got work to do. Perfect. I think this is good as is. We're going live with it. Yeah, if somehow you guys aren't following me on Twitter, I know Twitter sucks. I'm at least having fun with the suck. Check out my Twitter, the handle you would expect, where I post memes like this. Are you kidding? Did I just unintentionally steal the meme? Cool. Problem solved. This is just open source. We're just forking and playing on top of people's ideas, even if I did just accidentally steal the HTMX meme. Like entirely unintentionally. May 14th, that was long enough ago, right? Yeah, it's the 22nd. Cool. So yeah, that was a week ago. I'm a JavaScript dev. I have short-term memory. Not short-term memory loss. I remember things for a week, but then they're gone. How do you think we ended up with this language? Anyways, so Windows polluted, good memes, probably the right way to do things. Clearly Galaxy Brain, but I get why people would be upset. Worst of all, it's just one big ball of JS, one file. It isn't decomposed at all. If this person took one of my classes at MSU, I would fail them based solely on the complete misunderstanding of separation of concerns. If your concerns aren't separated, you suck. Who isn't separating their concerns? Come on, MVC is still the best way to write software, obviously. And this is something that any freshman in computer science should be able to grasp. Absolutely. Why do people just put everything in one file? It's stupid, chaotic. Even like good React devs, like the creator of React, Dan Abramov, make this mistake. React file structure.surge.sh. Classic tweet from Dan A. It is a guideline though. It means literally start by putting everything in one file. When it feels like it's annoying, start splitting them up. When that gets annoying, maybe add some folders. Terrible advice. You should have more folders than you have users if you're a real project. And there are no folders that are unnecessary in HTMX. There's just one file. And clearly they're not annoyed because they haven't split it. And if they're not annoyed, then they're stupid. Good software starts with clean code, and this code is filthy. Yeah, absolutely. Think about how pissed Uncle Bob would be. No build tools. The next red flag is the lack of a build step. Not only does HTMX not have a traditional build step, thereby depriving themselves of the benefits that the rest of the JS community enjoys, but they actively brag about it. Come on, you can't even have types without a build step nowadays. It gets worse though. If you look closely, even though they claim to not have a build step, they actually do have a build step. It's just an ad hoc set of bash scripts that they wrote themselves. Oh boy. npm run script uglify and gzip 9kf. Yeah. Oh yeah, they do have bash for these things. That is hilarious and cursed. Bun's trying to replace bash with JavaScript. HTMX is trying to build JavaScript with bash. Which side are you going to be on? This is ridiculous and dishonest. Shameful. Like, come on, why are they lying? And they don't have TypeScript, but they pretend to have TypeScript with the definition file. Like, come on. Like, don't fake it. Just do it or don't. Despite the obvious benefits of TypeScript for a project like HTMX, the authors have stubbornly resisted to use it. Part of this is their irrational opposition to a build step, which they actually have, by the way. But part of it is a ridiculous commitment to shipping debuggable source code. Who's actually reading their source code, even when you wrote it yourself? Unrealistic, stupid. You have debuggers to catch these mistakes. You have users to catch these mistakes. Wait, no, none of us have users. That's a myth. But if you don't have users, who cares anyways? Of course, as any JavaScript developer who isn't a complete idiot knows, TypeScript supports source maps, which make it perfectly debuggable. Despite this fact, the authors continue to insist on using antiquated versions of JS for development. Because source maps work perfectly, always. No one's ever had a problem with those. In a tacit admission that they screwed up, they are now belatedly adding JS doc annotations to their codebase. And this is a very loose use of the word because it's barely even there yet. All of this is to make up for the fact that they didn't do the obvious correct thing initially and simply write the whole project in modern modular TypeScript. The only good news here is that at least they have a halfway decent test suite. And given the state of the codebase, they better damn well. Testing's overrated. Can't imagine that's going to help at all. Antiquated technology. Okay, that covers the major, but by no means all, issues with the HTMX codebase itself. Let's move on to the more general issues with HTMX. Like, how are we this far and we haven't even talked about the problems with it? We've only talked about the code because there's that many issues with the code. The first glaring issue is something that authors, again, brag about. It uses hypermedia. Really, this is just a pretentious way of saying it uses HTML. Yeah, like, who actually uses the term hypermedia? Come on. Like, you're not better than us just because you're saying the big word. I say a lot of big words, and it doesn't make me better. I don't know why they insist on using a different and confusing term for it, but whatever. Okay, well, if you haven't noticed, HTML is over 30 years old now. Like, if HTML sucked, why would we not have changed it by now? It's been 30 years and we haven't bothered. Clearly, HTML is perfect. It's ancient, though. And moreover, we have lots of experience with the approach that these guys are recommending. It's not like HTMX is doing anything new. It stole all of its code from Intercooler, by the way. If you didn't know that, HTMX is a shameless fork of Intercooler. Insane that they just get away with that and nobody cares. But other things that they copied from too, like PJAX and Unpoly, get even less credit. Unpoly is way better than HTMX, by the way. I haven't used it yet, but better name, so probably better. And these have been around for literally forever. I don't want to think about how old Intercooler is. Oh boy, the first commit, 2013 December for Intercooler. So it is over 10 years old. Oh God, Carson wrote it. So the guy who wrote this post is the guy who HTMX was stolen from. How disgusting. How horrible is it that this guy could have all of his code stolen by HTMX after building Intercooler, and now they're stealing his blog posts and putting them on their website? Poor guy. Anyways, ignore this. They got bullied into calling HTMX Intercooler too, because otherwise they would get so much shit from all the HTMX like fanboys, the army of people who just defend them blindly. So ignore that. And even before all of this, we had jQuery.load, which, like, come on, solves the problem perfectly. You just assign result to wherever you're getting ajax/test.html for. Easy. But with the super innovative stuff HTMX is doing, it's just the same thing, but worse syntax. Like, how do I know what HX does here? It doesn't say what it is. Everyone knows what the $sign does. It means you make money because you're using jQuery. But then you call .load on this tag. Obviously, it's going to load this thing. Duh. What's this HX get and HX target stuff? Nonsense. It would be funny if it wasn't so infuriating, though. No components. The next reason to consider not using HTMX is that there aren't any components available for it. If you go with React, you get things like MUI, NextUI, Chakra, also all the things I mentioned in videos, like the wonderful ecosystem around the ShadCN stuff. Like any one component in ChadCN has more JavaScript and more files than the entirety of HTMX. How are they pretending this is real when we don't even have like more than one file for the whole runtime, much less additional files for our components? We don't even have components. What the fuck? Components have been the norm forever now. With HTMX, you get nothing. You have to figure out what components you want to use and then how to integrate them with HTMX using events and so forth. And this is all your problem. They don't care. If they were shipping real code, they'd have components for us, wouldn't they? Do you really want to spend time figuring out how things like lit work and then also how to integrate them with HTMX? That doesn't make any sense. Far better to go with the front-end library with integrated off-the-shelf components that you can just use without any fuss. No front-end or back-end split. Again, separation of concerns. Why are they copying React? This is a terrible idea. Your backend and your front end are different things. They're different computers. They should be entirely different. Why are we sharing code between them? What the fuck? Another major reason to avoid HTMX is that it eliminates the split between the backend and front end. They even have a page with a team bragging about it as a virtue when the company foolishly moved from React to HTMX. And now React is doing this wrong too, like from bad to worse. The front-end and back-end split has been extremely successful for many companies, allowing the front-end engineers to focus on building a good user experience, as well as for the back-end engineers to focus on getting the data access layer right. It's been extremely successful for many companies. Yet there are at times some difficulties in coordinating between the two teams, with back-end engineers complaining that front-end engineers change their requirements too frequently, and front-end engineers complaining that back-end engineers move too slowly. Well, obviously back-end engineers are always slowing everything down. They suck. But we now have awesome technologies to solve this, like GraphQL and server components that will help with this. It's a solved problem at this point with the existing standard web application model. Absolutely. And GraphQL, like Facebook solved this problem. They made a way for us to make this really, really detailed, massive schema that is hard but valuable to comply with on front end and back end. And now we don't have to talk to each other because when your front end and back end are split, you now have a massive communication problem and engineers suck at communicating. So the obvious solution, we need to invent things to make up for the communication. And GraphQL and server components are both wonderful things we've invented to solve that problem. HTMX is the opposite of a wonderful thing to solve the opposite of this problem. The front-end and back-end split has proven a very good organizational model for companies, particularly as they scale their development teams, and abandoning it for full-stack, so-called development, is a risky and frankly foolish bet. Absolutely. Why people are pretending that full-stack's even a thing is nonsense. People even think Next.js is a back-end framework now. Like, come on, it runs JavaScript. How can that be a back-end framework? Speaking of back-end engineers are terrible at making UIs. I mean, have you seen this website, htmx.org? Look at how ugly this is. It's so gross. That pattern, terrible. Like if this was a real website, it would look like Linear because Linear is the only real website. That's why everybody's cloning it now. This is a real website for a real framework. Well, not a framework, an application. You get the idea though. There are individual dev tools in the React ecosystem that have better homepages, like the million.dev site. This site has more beauty in any pixel than the entirety of the HTMX site. And this isn't even a different like framework. This is just a way to speed up your React code. Because React devs need it because their code is so slow. You get the idea. Anyways, leaving aside if the front-end and back-end split is even good, we can definitely say back-end engineers make garbage user interfaces. Just look at he even highlighted the same site for me. I didn't have to do it. The author here, poor whoever the guy who wrote this poor intercooler thing is, getting all the shit stolen from him. He calls out here that the HTMX website looks awful. You have inline styles, tables, a bunch of image tags that don't have alt descriptors all over the place. Just a dog's breakfast of bad HTML from people who are trying to tell us to use HTML. Like, they don't even like or know how to use HTML. Why are they extending it? If you don't like it, just go back to backends. You can JSON's not that bad. I can open up a JSON blob in the browser. If that's what you want, just do that. I could read this blog post as JSON. Why are you making me deal with HTML? JSON's obviously the superior format, and then any client can format it however they want. Even if you only have one client, what if they want to do things differently? What if in 10 years, you finally have a user, but they only use mobile apps? What is your HTML going to do for you now, huh? I'd like to see HTMX native. Good luck. You should leave your user interfaces in the hands of people who understand how to properly build them. And those people are, today, mostly front-end single-page app devs, which obviously no development better than anybody else. Think about how much time SPA devs are thinking about build tools, thinking about Webpack, thinking about standards. There is no subsection of developers that think more about how the code actually gets built than front-end SPA devs because they have to. Webpack is more complex than anything HTMX does, and that's why they're scared to have a build step. Don't even get us started about cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. Now that you're embedding these behaviors in the page, oh boy. Getting back to more technical reasons why you shouldn't use HTMX, it opens you up to a class of security issues called cross-site scripting attacks. You React devs wouldn't get this. You guys don't have users. You don't have to worry about security, but we're real devs here. We care. The problem here is fundamental to the design of HTMX. It enables and even encourages you to put behavior in your markup. Once again, we see a clear violation of the separation of concerns. Why would you like model view controller? The view has no logic. The model is the structure of the data, also has no logic. The controller is where you put your logic. Now you have a way to link these things together, and it's so much easier and scalable. Like, how are you going to get a promotion if you don't have 3 times the files? Separation of concerns is essential, and I'm tired of us pretending it's not. You should, if you haven't seen already, I have a whole video about separation of concerns and how important it is. Feel free to search on YouTube, Theo separation of concerns. Might be helpful context if you're confused right now. We've known for ages in web development that you should separate your markup, styling, and behavior into HTML, CSS, and JS files respectively. Sadly, more and more people fuck this up. Like, even React is trying to combine HTML and JavaScript. Like, come on. If React was a good framework, it would let you change your HTML instead of render your HTML. Gross. By violating this obvious and well-known truth, HTMX makes you vulnerable to other people injecting behaviors into your web apps if you don't sanitize your HTML properly. God, and I promise you, there are no HTMX devs that I would describe as sanitary. They use Linux. They use Vim. Gross. There is no way any of these people are sanitizing anything, much less their HTML. Sometimes the HTMX author will make a smart aleck comment like, well, how do you feel about the href attribute? But that's obviously different. Obviously. Also, important, no jobs. Nobody codes because they like coding. We're all here to make our money, go home at the end of the day, and play some video games or do some gardening. Like, no one is coding for fun. So if this project doesn't have jobs, why would you bother? Another practical reason not to use HTMX is that there are, rounding off, 0 HTMX jobs. I just did a search of HTMX jobs on Indeed and found a grand total of 2. One at Microsoft and one at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. A search for React, on the other hand, gives you 13,758 jobs. I'm doing at least 2 of those jobs right now. Seriously, developer, which of these 2 technologies do you want to hitch your career to? It's so important. I don't think people understand when you pick a technology, you'll never, ever switch technologies. It's like getting a tattoo, but you can only have one tattoo. If you pick HTMX, you're going to get fired from your job. You're not going to have any new opportunities. You're going to see all these new languages coming out and be like, damn, I wish I had waited and picked that instead. There's going to be nothing but regret and an end to your career. So like, if you don't want to program anymore and you want a reason to get out, go learn HTMX. But if you're here to make real money, don't touch this shit. This single file, open source JavaScript file that has 10 times more lines than it has users. This is insanity. Great example of HTMX user. Primogen used to work at Netflix. Then he learned HTMX, and just a few months later, he's unemployed. Don't do that to yourself. Don't ruin your career for a terrible framework that's not even a framework. They say it's a library. I say it's a single shitty file of JavaScript, and clearly the author here agrees. Come on, guys. Speaking of which, if you do actually choose this as a company, you're fucked because you have nobody to hire. Primogen doesn't know how to do job interviews anymore, so you can't get him. And if you're looking for other developers, they're all learning real things, like Ember. The flip side of the above problem is that if you are a company, there are, rounding off, 0 HTMX developers. Well, there's the person who made this, but they didn't even make it. They stole it from Intercooler, so maybe. But everyone goes to boot camps and they all learn React. If you want to have a large potential employee pool, maybe your company has high turnover for some reason, maybe you want to keep employee wages down, maybe a small team of full-stack engineers would get in the way of your kingdom being built, it makes a ton more sense to go with the big dog in front-end development. And that dog is React. I would like for jQuery to have a word here, because unlike React, jQuery separates your concerns, so consider it, but React's 2/3 of the way there with the separation, totally fine. So somebody said, wasn't everyone hyping HTMX 3 months ago? This article was published 3 months ago, because Carson here, the creator of Intercooler, did the right thing and shut down HTMX. In order to make sure that HTMX didn't lose SEO to his article, they stole his article and put it on the HTMX site. That's how dirty these guys play. It's gross. Speaking of gross, duplicating your APIs. Come on. Have you never heard of dry? Don't repeat yourself? Why would you ever reuse things? What happens if that thing changes? Now you have to go change it everywhere. What if you forget a place? If you adopt HTMX and you want to also have a mobile app or an API for third parties to use, you will need to create that API entirely separately from your web application's endpoints. Like, if your code isn't reusable, no one's going to be able to use it. Come on, back to the mobile thing. Like, are they going to make HTMX native? They're going to make HTMX for Xbox? They already have the X. They can't have a second X. Come on. Here again, we find that, incredibly, the HTMX people brag about this fact, completely ignoring the duplication of work involved here. It makes far more sense to have a single API maintained by a single backend team that can flexibly serve all your needs. This is obvious and, frankly, not even worth arguing about, right? Like, why does any dev think they can just make a backend? It's so hard to make a backend. Have you seen Kubernetes? You can't just do that. You can't just throw some code in a Lambda and have a good time. It's not that simple. That shit doesn't scale. You're just going to lose all your money, lose all your employees, lose all your jobs. You're going to end up like Primogen begging for money on Twitch. That doesn't work for anyone. It's obvious and frankly, not even worth arguing about. Speaking of all the things I just said, obviously this isn't going to scale. Like, how can this scale? Come on. Another technical issue with HTMX is that it just won't scale. It may work for small applications, but as applications get larger, the HTMX model breaks down and it becomes a mess. The component model of React and other front-end tools keeps everything compartmentalized and testable. This makes it much easier to keep large code bases clean. Like, it's so easy to test in React. Come on. You can just have a snapshot test for every single component in your code base. Now you have 100% code coverage, you have visibility every time anything changes, and you have a bunch of additional code because those snapshots are huge. You just massively bumped your line count. One of those snapshots for one of your components will probably be bigger than the whole HTMX file. How are they taking this seriously? As an example, you should consider GitHub, which started out using technologies a lot like HTMX. It has recently started adopting React, and it's now much more stable than it was previously. Like, exactly. Y'all use GitHub. Well, you probably don't because you're not showing anyone your code, but pretend you're a GitHub user because you're pretending that you're a real developer. Now imagine when you go to it and you click a button that nothing happens, or it bugs out, or goes the wrong place, or it says you have the close button, but it's already been closed. These are all bugs that clearly React can solve. They might have had some rough steps along the way because it seems like it's getting worse, not better, but theoretically it is much better. Why would you ever want them to keep writing with the old technology if the new technology theoretically can get so much further along than we currently are? Because GitHub's UI is notoriously stable. They have to maintain that stability. Never had a bug on GitHub. Hopefully that continues. They would have been better off if they had just started with React and built the whole thing in a modern component-based way, but at least they are making the right moves now. Better late than never. Speaking of which, the creator is unhinged. Like, he just stole all this code, he stole all these memes, he stole this article. Insanity. Finally, and maybe the most important reason not to use HTMX, the creator is obviously unhinged. Just look at the Twitter feed. Unprofessional, childish, intentionally provocative, or consider the fact that he posts essays that he doesn't even agree with to his own site. Like this article. Come on, he even has one here. Is HTMX just another JavaScript framework? This one is a different article, so he stole this one from somebody else, even better. And he's just publishing them here like they're totally normal things to steal from people. But he just wants all the HTMX SEO going to his site because even though he's not a real web dev, he knows SEO is valuable. So he's just stealing everyone else's. The essays tab has a section for memes. What framework has memes? Come on. Like, have you seen the React.dev site? There's no memes on the React site at all. Oh, sorry, I have a query param I shouldn't. That's just stored in local storage. Even better. I've unintentionally swapped this logo forever. But this isn't a meme. Like, this is the real React logo. That's why it's there. Come on. Question mark uwu equals false. This is what they get for server rendering their JavaScript. If this was all just done locally, they'd be fine. Anyways, no memes in real frameworks. Most of these memes are also cringeworthy, and all of them have no business being on a website of a front-end library that expects to be taken seriously. And by the way, those memes are stolen. Like, where was my meme? So here you can see I posted this meme 24 minutes ago, which was May 22nd. And here you can see they stole my meme all the way back on May 14th. They steal memes so hard, they steal them backwards. What the hell? Like, they're thieves, they're clueless, they're backend devs that suck at UI, just everything is wrong here. I don't get why anyone would use this. Apparently, he also allows anyone to be the CEO of HTMX and make one of those super cringy job announcements on LinkedIn. Like, everyone knows real companies have no more than 5 CEOs. If you have more than 5 CEOs, you're fucked. Also, if you have less than 2, what's going on there? This is why Ping is so fucked, by the way. I'm the only CEO at my company, Ping.gg. If we had more CEOs, we'd probably be in a much better spot. But since I'm the only one, we're screwed. Here, anyone can become a CEO. Disgusting. Why would anyone think this is a good idea? Just letting anyone become your CEO? Unhinged. Nonsense. Wanton buffoonery. Totally agree. When you pick a front-end library, you are, to an extent, picking the author of the library as a coworker. Why would you ever work for this thief when you could work with Dan Abramov? Do you really want to work with this guy? I certainly don't. Conclusion. I hope this has convinced you that choosing HTMX and hypermedia for your web application is an exceptionally bad idea that could only have originated in Montana. Don't listen to the fanboys and fangirls with their "it's so over, we're so back" nonsense, CEO profiles, and childish memes. Software, and especially front-end software, is serious business, and that's why I made this really serious video. Because we need to treat this stuff with the same gravity as things like law and politics, which are both two extremely serious and productive activities. Because law and politics famously constantly make progress, never retread old ground, and never have useless controversies, unlike we do in software development. We should support libraries that focus on innovation and sophistication, not broken, backwards-looking libraries whose creators spend most of their time posting ridiculous things on Twitter. It's just common sense. HTMX sucks. I am so thankful someone else could say it, so I don't have to. We should look more into this guy. Who is this Carson Gross guy? Big Sky Software. Ew. Ew. Even the author is part of HTMX now. They're getting everyone. That's so gross. There's just no escaping it now. HTMX is infecting all of our brains. They're stealing everything. They're just, what a mess. How could anyone think this is a good idea? Let me know what you think, though, because I've been ranting for a while. The author wrote a great thing. But do you think HTMX is trash? I mean, obviously. But until next time, peace, nerds.